Following the Stefan Diggs trade, the wide receiver train is slam full. We're assessing the need and opportunities for the Bills in the draft today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who make Locked On Bills your first listen every single day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome in, folks. Very excited for today's conversation, where I am joined by Brett Whitefield of Fantasy Points, one of my best friends on the planet and one of my favorite people to talk football with. Brett, thanks for joining me today.
Heck yeah, man. I'm excited to be here. You're one of my favorite people to talk ball with, and it's a return. I was on Locked On Bills 4 years ago?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Glad to be back.
Returning guest Brett Whitefield. It's been a minute since we've had you here, but I'm excited that you are here to talk wide receivers, and we planned on doing this before the Buffalo Bills traded away Stefan Diggs. So our timing literally couldn't be better. But before we start getting into these wide receivers, for those who might be unfamiliar with you, I wanted to give you kind of a chance to discuss your background, provide some context as to why I am talking with you today. I actually did an episode yesterday on Wednesday before the Diggs trade, all about James Cook, and you were instrumental in that episode because you provided me with a massive data report that set up that conversation. And I told the listeners yesterday morning that you are one of the most influential people when it comes to football data and charting. So, Brett, your background, please.
Dang, that's high praise. Most influential people. I like that. So, played football my whole life. And then, when I got into big boy world, I decided I wanted to work in football as well. So knocked on the door PFF until they gave me an opportunity, kind of worked my way up from part-time to full-time status within like a year. For those that don't know, and I'm sure everyone does at this point, PFF, Pro Football Focus, they're the leading expert in football analytics, or at least they were. So anyways, I worked at PFF for about 7 years in a full-time capacity. I've also consulted with NFL teams. I've consulted with Power 5 college teams. And then I eventually left PFF to start my own thing here at Fantasy Points. We have a data company. I run the entire data company. We have a tool called the Fantasy Points Data Suite. It is, I think, earth-shattering as far as the shockwaves that's left in the space. Pretty much any data point that you want to get your hands on as a consumer, you can go get it at the Fantasy Points Data Suite. So that's my general background. I'm also very heavily invested in draft discussions. I write the prospect guide at Fantasy Points as well.
So Brett Whitefield, I know I say you're one of the most influential people in the space because of all the metrics that you come up with, all the different charting data. Like you're a pioneer in this space, man. You deserve a lot of credit. You've come up with a lot of things. You watch insane amounts of football. And that's why I like talking to you, because you come from an informed perspective. You watch the tape. It's not like you're living off of hot takes and, what everybody's trending topics are. Your opinions are rooted in film. And that's what I love. Those are the people I like talking to. And so let's do that. So the Buffalo Bills, they traded away Stefan Diggs. That happened. And I want to spend a lot of time today talking about this draft class and getting your opinions on receivers. These people have heard from me on a lot of receivers. I want to get an outside opinion, an informed outside opinion. But your initial reaction, your initial take on the Buffalo side of things, trading away Stefan Diggs to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, so as an outsider, and I'm coming from a place of I'm not in Bills culture every day. I don't know every little storyline, but from an outsider, it seemed like the Stefan Diggs thing was ready to boil over towards the end of the year. And then when you see the trade terms where it's like they're eating $30 million in cap space, and my initial reaction was like, that shows you how over that relationship was. It's just like they're going to eat that much cap to then get a 2025 pick, not even a 2024 pick. So to me, that just speaks to, culture fit probably wasn't working out anymore. And then there is a decline in play. And I think, I can speak more to that because I watch every play multiple times. So in Stefan Diggs, you do see a slightly declining player. I still think he's a fine player. Still think he's a good player. Probably not worth his paycheck anymore, though. And so I understand moving on from him, especially if he is going to be a locker room issue. So that didn't surprise me at all. Ultimately, I think this is a good move that will yield, better results once you get that full return. So
you mentioned you watch Stefan Diggs, and I think one of the big questions that people have is, well, why was there such a drastic statistical regression over really the last 12 games? If you consider the 2 playoff games, the last 10 regular season games, he started off unbelievable, 100 yards in 5 of 6 games, 5 touchdowns in the first 6 games. Then, I mean, the wheels fell off in so many different ways. And a lot of people tie that to transitioning away from Ken Dorsey, Joe Brady taking over as the offensive coordinator. But as a film guy, I mean, did you see things on tape that said to you, yeah, I think we see a physical regression, and that's tied to the statistical decline, not so much, okay, there's a different play caller?
Yeah, so I started seeing this at the probably halfway point of 2022. I started noting that Diggs he wasn't winning vertically the same way that you're used to. And even if you go back to the hot start last year, like the efficiency numbers on anything past 10 yards was not great. I don't think he has the speed to stack DBs anymore, get in their blind spot. I think these are big issues for a guy that you're paying him to be a 3-level player, do everything receiver, 160 targets a year. He just wasn't playing with that efficiency anymore. So everything he was doing had to come with an extreme amount of volume, where you weren't getting really those big plays from him. So great in the red zone still. I think that's one of his strengths. But other than that vertical speed, ability to win vertically really declined. And I think that's kind of what set this whole thing in motion.
How much of that's Josh Allen? I mean, I feel like some of those vertical shots, Josh missed them. Is that maybe a timing issue because of maybe a lack of top end speed and that ability to stack vertical? Because I feel like there was some opportunities, but they just didn't hook up in the ways that they did in the previous 3 years.
Yeah, so some of that's for sure, Josh, especially when they got clean looks. I don't think the rate of clean looks was the same as it was. We chart separation at fantasy points, and the metrics on Stefan Diggs on routes 15 yards or deeper, the consistent separation just wasn't there anymore. So even when they had opportunities, I feel like they were more of the contested variety than you're used to seeing. So yeah, Josh definitely missed some throws. Every quarterback's going to miss some throws. So I didn't think that was a huge part of the deal, though.
And I think vertical push is so important for a receiver because it opens up, right? When you have to respect the guy's ability to win down the field, well, they can snap stuff off and really win in the short and intermediate areas. I think that's a really interesting correlation. And as a major point of clarification, Brett Whitefield is not a Buffalo Bills fan. All right. So he's not coming in here with the homer takes. Let me tell you that. And so I think that's an important distinguishment for us to make. I had no idea how you were going to answer that question, and I think it's fascinating how you did. So now as we consider this Bills depth chart, as we consider Josh Allen, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, what's already in place in terms of the supporting cast for Josh Allen, when you think about the type of wide receiver that the Bills should be thinking about adding, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think one nice thing just off the top that I want to get to here is Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel they have a lot of versatility in their game. I was a big Shakir guy in his draft class. I think he finished as my wide receiver 5 that year.
Wow. I
proclaimed him one of the steals of the draft when the Bills drafted him. I've been waiting for this guy to get his opportunity. It seems like every time he's on the field for you guys, he's out there making plays. I've been waiting patiently. He's going into year 3, right, Joe?
Year 3, yeah. He led the team in receiving the last 12 games last year. So
right, and you talk about a guy with legit vertical speed, especially from the slot. And I know you guys have a litany of dudes who can line up in the slot, but it's really special. I think he does offer a field stretching element to his game, really good body control, kind of owns the boundary, things that I think will really help Josh Allen. So with that said, I think Samuel's a versatile player. You can scheme him up on some gadget stuff. He can play in the slot. He can also get out wide a little bit. So I honestly, I kind of think, I know in our previous conversations, Joe, I talked about maybe a Stefan Diggs replica, someone to fill that role in the offense. I mentioned a Roman Wilson to you. Yeah. But ultimately, I think maybe going for a dude like a target hog would be a good idea for you guys. Maybe a true X receiver.
All right. Well, we'll talk about those target hogs on the other side of it. We're going to get Brett's take on a lot of these prospects, so be sure to stick with me. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood Gold IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. All right, Brett, let's get into these 2024 prospects, a crop of players that the Bills are sure to invest in. And everybody knows about the big three, Marvin Harrison Jr., Odunze, Malik Nabers, and we expect them to all be drafted in the top 10. So let's start there. Do you think the Bills should be considering like a Julio Jones type trade from pick 28 up into the top 10 to land one of these guys, or is the depth of the class worth being patient for?
Oh, that's a great question. Very multi-layered as well. So I'm a big stickler for draft capital. I think your surplus value is going to be adding more bodies, not less.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you're trading up for a player, you better be right. You absolutely better be right. You look like smartest guy in the room syndrome. And this class is really deep. I'm gonna hedge a little bit. I'll say typically set up and play the class, the depth of the class. I think that's the way to go. But if it gets to a certain point, say Roma Dunes is there, 11, 12, maybe all three don't go top 10. Maybe you start picking up the phone and seeing what it's going to cost. Because I do think there is a drop off after those three. So, I definitely fence sat that question, Joe, but I think that's the truth. Like at a certain point, because I think there is a realistic chance all three of those guys don't go top 10. I know that's the consensus mock right now because they are that talented. Like you can reasonably see that, but ultimately, man, like we've seen this 100 times over where a guy slips that we're not expecting. So, you get to 14, 15, I'm for sure picking up the phone. So.
CeeDee Lamb getting to 18. I'll never forget that. I never say never with the draft. It would surprise me. I think we need 4 quarterbacks for sure. That might happen anyways. Joe Alt needs to go. Maybe a couple of defensive players. Brock Bowers. Like, never say never. But I think it's fair to say it's a different conversation going from 28 to 11, 12, 13, then 28 to 6, 7, 8, which are Atlanta, the Giants, kind of Tennessee teams that you look at as more likely destinations. But that price tag's pretty expensive, and there's a lot of arrogance that comes with it. You mentioned it, right? Like you're parting with, you're going from 28 to like 6, 7, 8. You're giving up 28, 60, next year's first round pick, probably another mid-round pick.
Yep.
Football is the ultimate team sport. You're moving up for one player that's a non-quarterback.
Yeah,
boy, you better get Justin Jefferson, right? Like
you just convinced me that we're not trading up for a receiver.
Well, Brandon Beane might do it. Like he's traded up for every first round pick that he's made except for Ed Oliver. He's traded up for him. Now it's not been that type of move up. It's usually a couple of spots.
Yeah.
But
a good example, Joe, from recent history, the Lions traded up in 2022 they had the Rams pick. They won the Super Bowl. So it was like the 31st or 32nd pick. I think they may have been one missing that year. And they got from 32 to 12 to take Jameson Williams, or was it 11?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
11 or 12, and it didn't cost that much. It cost a third round pick and a move up in the second round, basically.
That was one of the most confusing trades that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, the Vikings got raked over the coals for that. Like
they got like Lewis Cine. Well, what was that about, man? That was insane.
Yeah, so if that's the precedent and that's all it costs to move up, then I think you're definitely in that conversation. If it is going to cost a future first, like you mentioned, I'm out. But
yeah. All right, well, let's talk about prospects. The big three is the big three. They're awesome. Would love to have them. It might be crazy to go get them, but these guys are more realistically in play for Buffalo. Let's start with Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. I think most people look at him as wide receiver 4. I have a different player as wide receiver 4, but he is my wide receiver 5. What do you like about Brian Thomas Jr. and his potential in Buffalo?
Physical profile is mouthwatering to start. He's tall, long, height, weight, speed guy, ridiculous athlete. You see the body control, like tracking down the ball tracking, ability to play above the rim, the acrobatics, getting to the ball. His catch radius is enormous. What's crazy is his ability to stack defenders off the line of scrimmage, even from like a 10-yard cushion, is nuts. You saw all the time at LSU, and really the downside with him is LSU just kind of asked him to run the vertical route tree. He didn't do a lot of in-breakers, didn't do a lot of crossing routes, wasn't asked to really, take advantage of zone and stuff like that. So he does have some issues where he wasn't asked to do this, so we don't know that he can. But when I'm looking at Josh Allen and what I think he's really good at, I want to support him with receivers that get open. I've been mentioning this for years. I think the Stefan Diggs trade for Buffalo was awesome because it set him up with guys that separated. Cole Beasley at the time, Stefan Diggs, you had John Brown in there at a certain point. And my critique on Josh's whole career has been just throw for throw accuracy isn't always on point. Sometimes it's a little inconsistent. Make that margin of error bigger, right? So get guys that can separate. Don't do what Carolina did with Cam Newton and give him towers. Like, oh, this guy's inaccurate, so we'll give him Funchess and Kelvin Benjamin and have him win vertically that way. And I don't like that for Josh Allen. I want guys that can separate. Brian Thomas Jr., while we're not sure how he separates in the short part of the field, I know he can separate vertically. And that was the missing element in the offense last year, in my opinion. So, I think he'd be a huge addition.
You mentioned the just kind of incomplete understanding of what he can do in the short to intermediate areas. And that's what pushes me back a little bit on him. I certainly recognize that he has the physical skill to do it.
Yes.
But there's the Alabama and the Missouri games for me, like where you kind of saw him get some chances to do that. I didn't love what I saw. But the ceiling is really, really high. He's my fifth receiver. If the Bills got him, I would be pretty satisfied with that selection. My number 4 receiver is Xavier Leggette out of South Carolina. I know that you don't have him as your number 4 receiver. Look at Brett's got a reaction to that. And I like that we haven't discussed this yet, so we can you could give that little gasp of air there. But all right, so why am I crazy for having him as wide receiver 4? And just your thoughts on him as a fit in Buffalo.
You're not crazy at all. Listen, this receiver class is insane. I have 17 day 1 or day 2 grades on receivers this year. That is ridiculous, or maybe 18 actually. That's ridiculous. So I have Xavier Leggette as my wide receiver 7, but I still have a really high second round grade on him. And the Bills are picking 28. I have 17 non-quarterbacks, so 17 position players with a first round grade, which means once those 17 are off the board, you're like Xavier Leggette's fair game. So you take him at 28. I think it's a fine pick. I'm hoping he's there for the Lions at 29. So I'm not going to
I think he's the pick. I think if the Bills don't pick him at 28, the Lions are going to pick him. He's everything about a Detroit Lion to me.
Exactly.
So don't fart around. And Detroit might jump ahead of Buffalo if they really love him.
Right. And you want a guy who can create explosives. So my style comp for him is AJ Brown. Like this dude, and he's a little raw too, similar to Thomas, where he wasn't asked to do certain things, but you see the movement skills, the vertical skill set is obviously there, the body control. But man, what he can do in the short part of the field with the ball in his hands is insane. This dude is a mother effer to tackle. Like he is, woo! Like look out, AJ Brown. I mean, I remember when he was in Tennessee, him catching slants over the middle. Good luck. I mean, good luck tackling that guy. That's Xavier Leggette. You want to give Josh Allen some layups, some easy chain movers. Like, hey, we're gonna hit this guy on a 1-yard crossing route, and he's gonna take it 25 yards. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. You mix that yak ability with Curtis Samuel. You're playing with gasoline there. I think that's a really, really good call on Xavier Leggette.
I think he can just get you buckets, man. And that yak ability is sorely needed in this Bills wide receiver room. Size. I don't know. I get real excited thinking about him in Buffalo. I like the idea of Brian Thomas. I love the idea of Xavier Leggette. For him, the concern's just what the late breakout, right? I mean, like 4 years of nothing, amazing season this past year. If he had 2 seasons like he did in 2023, I mean, this is a top 20 pick, right?
Oh, for sure. And if you apply a little context to why the late breakout happened, you start to feel a lot better about that. He's not a typical one-hit wonder where, he stunk for 4 years and then got better. He was a late position swap to wide receiver. He was recruited as a quarterback, had some serious tragedy he had to overcome. So this is a man, by the way, too. He has gone through the fire and come out on top. I also like that from a culture fit for any team. He's just going to be great to the locker room.
Let's get in AD Mitchell here out of Texas, polarizing player. The highs are awesome, man. And like, he's one of those players where you can absolutely see a path for him to be awesome in the NFL. I think the floor is really low as well. To me, he's a guy that I'd let somebody else figure out, but I do recognize the ceiling. Where are you at with AD Mitchell out of Texas?
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 11 in this class. I know that's way lower than consensus. I see a lot of deficiencies, man. Like when I watched his tape, like first of all, the 4.34 40, not once when I watched his tape, I watched it before combine, did I say, wow, this guy's a sub 4.4 guy. Yeah. Not once did I have that thought remotely. I had him pegged like 4.49, 4.5. My working style comp for him was Josh Reynolds. So that tells you all you need to know about where I thought his explosiveness was. I thought he was a good route runner on intermediate routes. I think he's a possession type receiver where he's got that length. He's got some good ball tracking skills, and he's a pretty good route runner. You're going to get him on the dig, maybe some corners, some posts. He's going to do a lot of the dirty work over the middle of the field. That's kind of where I saw his skill set. I don't see this excellent top gear. I don't see this explosiveness to win downfield. He rarely could stack defensive backs. And then you got the whole takes plays off thing too to add in there. I don't know. I think he's a little underdeveloped as a route runner. You do see the fluidity though. I don't want to crucify the guy. You do see the fluidity in his movement where he can sink and explode in and out of breaks. So maybe he develops into a really good route runner at some point. I just think there's cleaner prospects to project in this class.
All right, we are going to talk about so many more prospects on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. Folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're looking to buy tickets for your next big event. Well, you don't have to because Game Time is here for you, and it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices of view from your seat, and a best price guarantee. I mean, simply put, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome, easy to navigate. They give you flash deals, and I also love this. When you buy a ticket from Game Time, they send it straight to your phone. You don't have to dig through your emails to find it. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So, Brett, you've worked on this fantasy points draft guide. I have a link to it in the show notes for today. So if anybody wants to check it out, I encourage you, go to the show notes for today. You can click on it and check it out. Tell everybody about the fantasy points draft guide, what they can expect and how they can get it.
Yeah, so you can go right to fantasypoints.com. It is free. No paywall this year. It is you don't even need an account. Like last year we required an account. Don't even need a free account. You just go on there. It is in front of the paywall, at least as of right now. We are considering changing that, but you can go fantasypoints.com. It is the first thing you see when you go to our website. You click on it. Right now we have all the skill players done. Most of our subscribers are fantasy dudes, so we're trying to hook them up with the skill players first. I'm adding offensive line tomorrow, defensive players from now until the draft, and then we'll kind of double back and add any late risers or whatever that I didn't get to. In total, there's going to be over 200,000 words written on prospects this year. So all by me, by the way.
Check it out. I've been enjoying it. So encourage everyone to check it out. Again, a link in today's show notes to find it directly. All right, let's get back to prospects here. Keon Coleman out of Florida State. Floor's yours.
Well, so do you remember the conversation I had about, Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess not making that mistake? I think Keon, safe to say, he's in that vein. I do think he has more functional athleticism than maybe those guys do. He's got that basketball background. He was a legitimate D1 basketball player at the same time he was a D1 football player at Michigan State. He actually played in games for Michigan State. A lot of people don't know that about Keon Coleman. He is a two-sport athlete. You do see that athleticism on the field, even though he didn't test that well. But unfortunately, his skill set is of that jump ball variety. He's a contested catch maven. This is a guy you're just going to like, YOLO ball. Oh, Keon's down there somewhere. Josh, let it rip. I don't think it's a great fit for what I want to do with Josh Allen. And like I said, I want to get him that separation guy. Keon's really not there yet. And maybe he develops a little bit, but his size, his girth, he's not the most flexible dude in the world. I do think he's really good after the catch. Ultimately, though, I think Buffalo should be looking to pass on Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to just keep it moving here. Xavier Worthy, Texas, ran what, a 4.21? Was he 5'11", 165 pounds? Your thoughts on Xavier Worthy?
Yeah, wide receiver 13 in the class for me. I am way low on consensus. If you read my combine primer, I warned everyone this guy's going to run really fast. Let's not double count it. At the time, he was a consensus top 75 pick, not a consensus top, first round guy. So anyways, he runs really fast. People overreact inevitably. He just doesn't have a developed skill set that makes me feel comfortable. I do think the explosiveness is great. You can scheme him up some stuff, maybe hit him on some deep balls, even though he doesn't track the deep ball well at all. But ultimately, you see the lack of size and play strength on tape all over the place. He gets bullied in his route stem. He gets bullied at the line of scrimmage. He gets bullied at the catch point. These are all massive issues for me. He can separate a little bit. He does have some work to do as a route runner, but ultimately, there's just way cleaner projections in this class for me. I don't think Buffalo needs to take a risk like that.
Man, I love the honest assessments that we're getting here in this conversation from Bright Whitefield. Let's keep it going. Roman Wilson out of Michigan. Did the Tyler Lockett comp stick for you?
The Tyler Lockett comp did stick. Roman is one of my favorite players in this draft class. I think he's my wide receiver 6. This guy can absolutely ball. I know I mentioned I wanted you guys to go grab a target hog. If Roman's there, that doesn't matter to me. I think he can get enough targets. He can do anything you want. 3-level player. You can get him involved in the gadget game. Great short, intermediate, awesome deep, can stack defenders. He's one of the freakiest athletes in this draft class. I know he only ran the 40 at the combine, but his verified 3-cone and short shuttle is like otherworldly. We're talking, top, 99th percentile. Ridiculous athlete. I think he can do anything you ask of him. Excellent route runner. Will separate. So I love it.
Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. I think if you said, give me the 3 best catches of any player from this class, the top 3 might go to Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. First few seasons of his career at Arizona State. If you can get past watching the Florida quarterback, you can see a pretty good receiver in Pearsall. Where are you at with him?
He is my wide receiver 5 in the class. First round grade for me. Absolutely love Ricky. He's awesome. He is the modern day X receiver where he is not 6'3" and 220, but he's 6'1", 210, 200 pounds, somewhere in there. And, short area quickness is where the NFL game has gone. And he embodies that to the full extent. Ridiculous, arrogant hands where he can literally just catch anything thrown his way. I love Ricky. I think he does everything you need. He'd be a slam dunk as well.
Best hands in the class? Ooh, you didn't say quickly yes.
Up there for sure. It'd be between him and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on who's my other guy? Oh, Cade Stover.
Oh, you're mixing in a tight end. Get out of here. We're talking receiver.
He's got ridiculous hands, but Ricky's probably number 1 for receivers for sure.
Lad McConkey out of Georgia. Think people like the route running and hands. Where you at with him?
Do you like Chris Olave?
Of course I do. You know that.
That's my comp for Lad McConkey. Chris Olave.
He's got that vertical ability?
Absolutely. I think Olave had more experience, more reps doing it, but Lad is every bit as good at it, in my opinion, coming out. Speed to stack, and then the ball skills are terrific. He wins on double moves, separation like crazy. You give him an ISO on a corner, whether that's in man or like cover 3 zone, he's going to win that rep vertically. Love him. Really, really good. He's not going to give you a ton after the catch, though, but he is going to give you separation at all 3 levels of the field. So
I liked his yak. It sounds like better than you. I thought his ability to transition from receiver to runner and then the explosiveness, I think it's more foot races, right? He's not like a missed tackle forcer, like breaking tackles, but man, if he's got a little bit of space. Yeah,
good transition, good vision in the open field. Not a make you miss guy, though.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, those windows shrink a lot faster than college.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to crease something 20 yards without getting touched usually. So, yeah.
Troy Franklin out of Oregon. I think that's a 30 visit guy for the Buffalo Bills. Ton of production at Oregon. Interesting scheme. Where you at with Troy?
Yeah, I like Troy, wide receiver 10 in the class. Again, deep class, so wide receiver 10 is not a bad thing. He's very good. He gives me, like, if Jamison Williams and Terry McLaurin had a love child, I think that's Troy Franklin. He has the short area quickness of Terry McLaurin, the route running chops, but he's more of that long, deep speed, slender kind of build like Jamison Williams. I think he's freaky on crossing routes if he gets more opportunities doing those. Doesn't have great ball skills though, so that's kind of where I was going with the Jamison comp. Terry McLaurin's got great ball skills. Jamison does not. He has a really hard time tracking the ball, not going to win at the catch point very often, but he's a great route runner. He's going to give you a lot of separation.
Yeah, I thought play strength was kind of my issue with Troy. Because he's like 6'1", 178 pounds, something like that. I thought that showed up on tape, but I do agree with the route running in the hands there. Devontez Walker out of North Carolina, another reported 30 visit for the Buffalo Bills. I haven't watched him yet, so I'm kind of really curious to hear what you have to say about him.
Yeah, so Tez, I'm very much lower on him than the rest of people. I have a day 3 grade on him. I would say, early to mid round 4. I feel comfortable with him there. Anything after that, yeah, that's gravy. What he gives you, some length, height, weight, speed, vertical receiving ability, and not really much else. He's not a developed route runner. The problem with his skill set right now is you really have to force the ball to him on those. I mean, go watch the Senior Bowl. They were trying so hard to get the guy a vertical catch, and he just couldn't do it. When the defense knows it's coming, knows that's all you can do, they can take it away. And so when he doesn't offer you anything in the short area of the field, that's a problem for me. And he really doesn't right now. Not a yak player, not a guy who's going to rip off a clean slant or a whip or anything like that. So he has some work to do for sure.
That's not very exciting. You were very intentional when we logged into this recording. You said, Joe, you got to ask me about Jermaine Burton. So, Brett, tell me about Jermaine Burton. I
think Burton is the most underrated guy in this class. My wide receiver 8 in the class. I think if he didn't have a couple off-field incidents, technically one of them was on the field, I guess. In the post game of the Tennessee, whatever that was, I'm not even sure, but yeah, if he didn't have a couple off-field things going on, I think everyone would be all over this guy, because I think guys like Daniel Jeremiah and Lance would be higher on Burton. I think they know that teams have a little pause with Burton, and so they haven't really been pumping him. But when you turn on the tape, you see freaky acceleration, freaky burst. He got 11, 10, 12-yard cushions routinely. Sorry about that. And just evaporates cushions. In the open field, he has just angle eroding ability where guys don't even get their hands on him. Like it is unbelievable. This guy's acceleration, burst. I think he tested like 4.42 speed. He's way faster than that on tape, like way faster than that. And he has legitimate route running chops. The Alabama offense didn't give him the opportunity to run the dig very often, but when he did, it's freaking beautiful. Sink and explode. He's got all these salesmanship techniques where, head fakes, shoulder fakes, knows how to attack the outside shoulder to get positive leverage. Dude is awesome. Really, really good player. I have him at 8 just because of the off-field. I don't even know what the off-field is. I'm just told by everybody, he's got off-field. So if somebody calls me today and says, Brett, Jermaine Burton has 0 off-field issues, he'll be going up in my rankings.
Wow. That was a glowing review. I'm glad you spoke about him. He'll be somebody I cover in our next receiver prospect. I've been doing episodes on those. He'll definitely be covered in the next one. And I like your phrase there, angle eroding ability. I normally say breaks pursuit angles, but I thought that was a more creative way to say it. So I'm definitely stealing that. Last question for you. Let's say the Bills pick a receiver at 28 or 60, but then they also have a couple of 4th round picks. If they wanted to double dip at wide receiver, who are some names? You don't have to give us a full scouting report, but some names in that early day 3 range that you think are worth investing in.
Yeah, so the reality of the situation is, with as many good receivers as there are in this class, there's going to be guys that slip to the 4th round that are very good players. We saw it the Amon-Ra St. Brown year, right? He had no business being a day 3 pick, but he was. Alas, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. So a couple guys I'll throw out. Your initial reaction might be, he's going to be a day 2 guy, but he might not be. Jamari Thrash, Louisville. Route running, separation, vertical speed, all day long. Jamari Thrash is one of those guys. I think he's awesome. I think there's a really good chance he's there in the 4th round. Malik Washington, Virginia. yak player. You want, some insurance in case Curtis Samuel goes down, some elite slot production. He can give you a little vertical element from the slot as well, and he's just crazy good after the catch. He might be the second best player in this class after the catch. I think he's awesome. So Malik Washington is one. Luke McCaffrey, Rice wide receiver, coming from the bloodlines. All the Carolina contingent in Buffalo are familiar with the family. There might be some dot connecting going on there, but either way, Luke is he's new to the position, played quarterback his first 3 years of college, transitioned to wide receiver the last 2. His 2022 tape was just very mediocre. You see a massive leap from 22 to 23. Route running, ability after the catch. He really worked on that hip and ankle flexibility. You see it come alive, especially after the catch. He can get it done, though. Not going to give you a lot of vertical element right now. He's not juiced up that way. But as far as separation goes, you just want a good player. Typically, when I'm looking at teams to draft a receiver on day 3, I want 2 things: special teams production and just a skill. Just give me something you're really good at. I don't need you to be a complete player. You're a day 3 pick. So if you were a complete player, you probably wouldn't be a day 3 pick, right? So give me something you're really good at. McCaffrey can separate. I love it.
Appreciate all the insight today, Brett. Folks, follow him on X at BG Whitefield. Check out fantasypoints.com and surely get your hands on that draft guide, which you can find a link to in today's show notes. Brett, you were awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
All right, folks, we appreciate you being here as well. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.